Thank you for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you, and look forward to having actually a conversation with you today around OpenGLAM. And I have a few slides. I have a very short presentation. Please find a link in the chat to those slides. And Susanna has invited me today to give a very brief presentation on some survey work that I've been doing for the last 3.5 years with my friend and colleague, Dr. Andrea Wallace of the University of Exeter in the UK. So I'm going to go and share my screen now to the presentation. And I'm going to go full screen in present mode. So I hope that you can see that clearly. So just a brief introduction about me. I have been working in cultural heritage for just over 20 years. I'm Irish, but I spent a lot of my career actually in the UK and in England specifically. And I've been working in national museums, private archives, audiovisual archives. I've worked for private art collectors, doing a number of things, cataloguing, managing copyright and licensing. So really anything to do with cultural heritage, and particularly images and photographs of cultural heritage. That is very much my daily bread. And for the last 5 years, I've been working for the Europeana Foundation here in the Netherlands. I'm speaking to you from my home today in Delft. And as you may know, Europeana is one of the world's largest sort of aggregators of digital cultural heritage, with around, I think, 60 million digital objects online today from around 3,500 cultural heritage institutions, almost all of which are in Europe. So my work and Europeana's work is very much about sharing and making accessible as easily as possible digital cultural heritage from European collections, but of course that means describing many cultures around the world. And specifically, I'm Collections Engagement Manager. So I lead a small team who look after the editorial and content marketing for Europeana, which includes online exhibitions, developing participatory features like galleries and publishing blogs, and working for audiences and with a fantastic network of cultural heritage professionals, creators, just like you, and that's what keeps me busy day to day. So I have a few slides here which I'll talk about the open access or OpenGLAM survey work that I've been doing with Andrea, as I mentioned in my introduction. So let me move forward. Let's firstly agree what open means. Let's have a clear definition. So for the purposes of the OpenGLAM survey, we use almost wholly the open definition developed some time ago by Open Knowledge International. And in a nutshell, this says that open means anyone can freely access, use, modify and share for any purpose. The survey itself, which began in March 2018, feels like yesterday, but it was a long time ago. It examines how GLAMs are making open access data, now that could be digital objects, it could be metadata or text, available for reuse. And the heart of the survey is a now quite large Google sheet, which you see on screen here, and links to it are below here and in the slides. And the spreadsheet essentially records all the key information that you might want to know as an open access researcher about the instances of open access. So the country in which the institution is based, the name of the institution in the native language or one of the native languages of the country, the type of institution. There are links to the institution's websites, their Wikidata, QID, if that exists. And there's quite a few other data points here, which I won't go through all of them. You can explore them yourselves, including how much of the data it has been openly released, which licenses or rights statements are being used to mark it as open access. And importantly, every single institution in the survey, we provide direct links to the open data itself. So you don't have to go searching or hunting on the museum websites. We give you a direct link to go straight to the good stuff, to the open material. Why did we start this? Well, first of all, there was an information gap back in 2018. There was really a lack of up-to-date information on this topic, and there was no shared place for people, for the OpenGLAM community, to see and add relevant data. And Andrea and I also perceived a really strong European and North American bias in the open access field. So we were really motivated to discover the real kind of true, accurate global picture. And who is it for? Well, we wanted to develop this for people who need to find and use open content or data, maybe for publications, for academic research or creative reasons, and also for GLAMs who themselves are thinking about open access data and open access policy. So it provides a field of reference for them within their own country or within the world to see what fellow peer institutions are doing. How do we do this? Well, the data in the survey focuses on data that GLAMs make available on their own websites and or external platforms. The focus really is on digital surrogates of objects in the public domain. So these, of course, are objects where any term of copyright for the material object has expired or actually never existed in the first place. And the information in the survey has been gathered by extensive desk research and also a lot of outreach and conversations with the global GLAM community. So thank you again. The key data points are summarized here on this slide. Some of them I already mentioned. You also find links to the terms of use and the copyright policies of the institutions. From an intellectual property, a copyright research perspective, that's kind of useful because what we've quite often found is that there is a clash or a mismatch between what the institution is actually practicing in terms of open access or not, and what it says in its copyright policies, and particularly when its data is on third-party platforms, for example, Flickr Commons. The institution themselves quite often don't capture that level of detail. And we have used and sometimes created Wikidata QIDs for every institution in the survey, and I'll come on to that in a second. The data sources for the survey, the major aggregators like Europeana, my employer, or Japan Search, Trove in Australia, Digital New Zealand, and so on, are extremely useful because they allow us to retrieve, search and pull data, for example, using Europeana's API en masse on this topic. So very valuable. Wikimedia Commons, of course, is a major space for open data, for OpenGLAM material, Flickr Commons, Creative Commons Search, and things like Sketchfab's CC0 3D collections. And there are also, I want to thank hackathon projects like Coding Da Vinci in Germany, which have run for a number of years, and also open data portals like the Open Data portal in Switzerland, because they are ways that we can find and access information about open data. The lead QID for the survey in Wikidata is on screen here, and the survey is now fully searchable and linked through and manifested in Wikidata. And every quarter, so 4 times a year, I mint a new instance of the survey so that we have a record of the survey and instances of open access in Wikidata over time. So you can see who's been added and sometimes which institutions are no longer open access. So that's something we've been working quite hard on. What's the overall picture? Well, when we started the survey back in 2018, we initially, I think on day one, had about 30 open access institutions from inside my head, Andrea's head, and some friends on Twitter. And today there are over 1,200 GLAMs who are recorded all around the world in the survey, in that the giant spreadsheet. Of course, one of the benefits of having the information detailed in Wikidata is that it's very easy to output visualizations and to create insights about OpenGLAM using Sparkle, for example. So Here I have a couple of slides showing you instances of open access around the world. As you can see, and this I guess won't be news to you, it's not unexpected, that there is a very heavy concentration in certainly in Europe, and also the Anglophone world of the United States of America, and to a lesser extent the UK. Yeah, and here is a detailed view of the spread of OpenGLAM around Europe. And when we look at other parts of the world, so we look at sort of Central and South America, you can see that it's quite a different picture. That open access, at least to our knowledge so far, is less common, or at least less visible in major parts of the globe. And yeah, a benefit of having the data in the spreadsheet, of course, is that you can also generate very easily using the explore function in Google Sheets, pie charts, which I love a pie chart, bar graphs, to visualize and to share information about OpenGLAM today. So this is one that I made showing the country distribution of open access around the world. Here is one showing you the breakdown of institution type. So museum, for example, is around 36%, so just over a third of OpenGLAM so far, followed by libraries, archives, and then other types of institutions. And one more, this is the breakdown of licenses and rights statements. So these are the legal tools which GLAMs are using around the world to mark up and to publish open data. So public domain mark, of course, is very important. CC0, no known copyright, that's mostly from Flickr Commons, and other relevant OpenGLAM licenses. So just before I wrap up and look forward to this conversation, some real world challenges about doing this work and about OpenGLAM is that the picture from the survey very much reflects the technical, socio-economic and the human infrastructures of the world itself. So where we see OpenGLAM very much mirrors a lot of those factors, which of course exist in the real world. And that when I mentioned major aggregators, I mean, that's very valuable from a research point of view, but that also creates a kind of, I call it a distortion effect in OpenGLAM, in that because Europeana has existed for almost 12 years and has an API and has of course been very heavily invested in and resourced, it means it's easy to find the open data, which is good, but Andrea and I also recognize that creates a sort of distorting picture, because many other parts of the world where major national or multinational aggregators for cultural heritage data don't exist, it's much more difficult, it's much more problematic to actually find open access, open data where it is. Of course, the culture of copyright, or the culture of copyright culture, is at its heart a very kind of Western and Anglophone construct, which doesn't apply to many of the cultural heritage, intangible cultural heritage, which exists particularly beyond Europe and North America. And copyright itself, even for relative kind of copyright lovers like me, has a very high barrier to entry in terms of knowledge, and that's very much true for GLAMs, that very often there are not people within institutions who have copyright as their job or even in their job description, and if they do, it's still a very complex and challenging environment to really get a handle on and to know how to deal with when you're talking about digitized collections. If you want to read more about the survey, I've written a few pieces on OpenGLAM Medium. Please find the link here. And yes, thank you for listening today. You'll find me on Twitter as CultureDoug, or please visit my website, douglasmccarthy.com. And I will stop sharing my screen now, and I look forward to speaking with you and welcome your questions. Thank you.